In this video today, I'm going to be demonstrating how to scale using the UC Curette. I'm going to be working on teeth numbers 30 and 29. And I first want to start off by saying that using the UC is really similar to using an Explorer as far as technique, modified pen grasp. Things that you do need to consider though are that there's a blade now and we have to be extra careful not to cut the gum versus the Explorer that just had a pointed tip. The UC has two sides to the blade along the face. Next step that we want to consider is selecting the correct end to use. Right now we're going to be working on the buccal surfaces of 30 and 29. In order to check for the correct working end, I'm going to hold up as if I'm going to put my fulcrum finger on a tooth and I'm going to, let's say, work on tooth number 30. Now we can see the face of the blade is facing towards the tooth that I want to work on. If I were to show you the incorrect end, same positioning, the face of the blade is facing away from the tooth. So we want it to face towards the tooth that we are working on. Next, I'm going to drop my hand to about 0 degrees, and I'm going towards the distal portion of tooth number 30, and I want to roll my fingers just slightly so that the 1/3 of the toe, just that corner part of that toe, is adapted towards that tooth. That's going to help me insert interproximally, and then I can bring my hand up a little bit at about 80 degrees for the working stroke, and I can scale the interproximal distal portion of tooth number 30. Now I'm going to remove my UC, and it's similar in the aspect that we are going to go towards the mesial doing those small oblique strokes, and I'm going to keep my elbow tucked in so that by the time that I'm going to pivot around the mesial buccal line angle, my elbow will swing out and help me pivot into the interproximal. Okay, so we want that corner of that toe, again, adapted to the tooth. Elbow in and small controlled oblique strokes. I'm approaching the line angle. I'm going to pivot, get into the interproximal, continue my strokes, and then up and down. Now we are going to do the same thing on tooth number 29. Making sure that we're using the correct working end, we can see the face of the blade is facing towards the tooth that we want to work on. Okay, dropping my hand to about 0 degrees, making sure that corner is adapted to the tooth. I can insert, bringing my hand up to about 80 degrees, and I can do my up and down strokes in the interproximal for tooth number 29, the distal surface of tooth number 29. Remove. Turn your instrument around. Remember to keep your elbow tucked into close to your body, making sure that corner of that toe of your blade is adapted to the tooth. And we're going to do small oblique strokes. Now this premolar is smaller than the molar, so we're going to pivot sooner, making sure your tip of the toe is adapted, and then you can do up and down after you've done a few oblique strokes. Okay, When working on the surfaces away from me, I'm going to be sitting at about 10 to 11 o'clock from my patient, and I want to make sure that I'm selecting the correct working end. Again, for the tooth that we are working on, you want to make sure that the blade, the face of the blade, is facing towards the tooth that you are working on. See, we have the correct working end. If I were to flip my instrument and apply the same thing, the face of the blade is now facing away from the tooth, and that is incorrect. Starting with tooth number 30, going towards the distal, I'm going to make sure my hand is at about 0 degrees and that the corner of that toe is adapted towards the tooth, so that I may insert, bringing my handle up so I can get a good working angle and scaling on the tooth. One more time. Keeping my elbow tucked in, making sure, keeping my elbow tucked in, bringing my handle down as much as I can to get 0 degrees, making sure that corner of that toe is adapted. I'm going to insert, bringing my handle up to about 80 degrees now to get a good working angle. I may now scale the distal of tooth 30. And I can remove. Turning the instrument around, I'm going to bring my elbow out. And now, small oblique strokes, making sure that corner of that toe is adapted. Once I get to the line angle, pivoting my elbow in, as I am now interproximal, and I can scale the mesial surface of tooth 30. Removing that, and going to tooth number 29. Bringing my handle as low as I can, making sure that corner of that toe is adapted. Inserting, bringing my handle up now for a working angle, and I can now scale the distal of tooth 29. Removing, turning my instrument around to go towards the mesial of tooth 29, bringing my elbow out, making sure that corner of that toe is adapted. Small oblique strokes. Getting to the line angle, I will pivot my elbow in towards me, turning the instrument around the tooth. And once I am interproximal, I can continue those strokes to now scale the mesial surface of tooth 29. And remove.